Okay, welcome to your presentation on triglycerides. What I need is for you to ignore any page numbers or question references because these relate to a previous textbook. I haven't used that for a long time, but the slideshows have been updated. Right, let's move on. So, I've already uploaded a bit of material in regards to triglycerides already. These are fats and oils, but all of them have the same polyalcohol backbone, which we call glycerol, otherwise known as 1,2,3-propantriol or propan-1,2,3-triol, which means you've got a propane here and there's 3 alcohol groups attached to it. Glycerol is really smooth, slippery stuff. So when you've got it in soap, this is what gives it its slippery feeling. Glycerol.
Wait, so the middle page only has one. I mean, the middle carbon only has one page.
Yeah, because how many bonds per carbon?
4.
4. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4. Hence the CH2s down here.
Yes.
This stuff here, polar and unpolar.
Polar.
Highly polar, capable of?
Hydrogen bonding.
Correct. Well done. Okay. Now, of course, this itself is not a fat. To turn it into a fat, you need to go through an esterification process, which means attaching a fatty acid to each of these. And by varying the fatty acid that attaches to the propan-1,2,3-triol, you vary the kind of oil. You would be aware that olive oil is different to canola, is different to sunflower. If you put olive oil in a pan, you can't deep fry with it because it's got a really low burning point. That's fine for doing an egg in, but you wouldn't use it to deep fry stuff. You use canola oil to deep fry. That's the function.
Which I don't think that fatty acid changes polarity.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What do you notice about oils? Do they mix in water or do they not? No, they don't. So we're going from polar interactions to an incredibly non-polar one. Now, of course, non-polar molecules can have polar functional groups attached to them, but because they've got such big-ass carbon chains hanging off them, that gives it an overall non-polar approach. So, moving on. Fatty acids are long-chain carbon acids. They have a carboxylic acid group at the end, so we're talking a C double bond OH, and then whatever is attached to the end there. So big ass fatty acid there. One of the interesting things about all of this is that life has evolved in all sorts of animals and plants to have these kind of fatty acids involved, and they like, I don't know why, but they all have an even number of carbons. Isn't that fascinating? It's almost like the argument for intelligent design, except that I don't believe in that. For some reason, even numbers works. Now, you can have what's known as a saturated fat or an unsaturated fat. Saturated fats are saturated with hydrogens. That means the carbon chain is covered in hydrogens. Unsaturated fats will have double bonds and sometimes triple bonds. Molecules with more than one double bond or more than one triple bond are what we call a polyunsaturated triglyceride or a polyunsaturated fat, as in many sites of unsaturation, hence the term poly.
Can you saturate unsaturation?
Through the hydrogenation of the platinum catalyst. And that, if you'd watched the video on how margarine is produced, is exactly how it is. So there's a table of common fatty acids. I'm not sure if it's in the stationery text, and to be honest, I haven't got a stationery text in here because it's at home. Does anyone have a stationery text? Barney, I'm going to borrow yours. Well, that's fine. So if we look up triglycerides in the book, Organic and Biological, 3.9, page 211. Okay. I don't see a table of common fatty acids in there. So I'll just simply upload that to the site from the old stage 2 chemistry text, just to give you an idea of some that actually occur in nature. By the way, you're never going to be required to know the fatty acid. You'll always be given. What you are going to need to know is glycerol, propane 1,2,3-triol, and you're going to need to be able to draw it. I'll be showing you some examples of triglyceride-based exam questions as a part of this. So I've seen enough of that. When we do the fatty acids, rather than writing them out this really long chain here, and you know, I could say circle the functional group, well there it is, there's the acid group. That takes ages. If it's got a repeat chain, which means carbon after carbon after carbon, we just condense it with the brackets. So you might have to draw it out, something like this. But if I could say draw that in a condensed structural form using stick, could you do it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's like a non-anomic acid. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Double bond O, bond OH. There it is. Simple, right? That's quick and easy. But to write it out in full, it's a pain in the arse, so we'll use condensed formula for writing. Natural triglycerides, they always contain 3 different fatty acids. They can be all the same, or they can be 3 different ones. And depending on the fatty acids that you attach to the triglyceride will change the properties of the oil or the fat itself. And that's why we use different fats for different things. So here we have an example here of 3 different fatty acids. Saturated or unsaturated?
Unsaturated.
Yeah, correct. Because we have double bonds involved. Alright, so using table 4.1 to identify the 3 fatty acids in the above molecule. What I'll do is I'll see if I can find a copy of the old text and put up table 4.1 on the website. You can go back and have a look at that. Right. Fats are broken down in the body by enzymes called lipases. Fat one oil breaks down into a molecule of glycerol and your 3 fatty acid molecules. So a diet high in fat, is not necessarily a good thing. You need these lipases because normally the fats couldn't break down ever. Remember that hydrolysis of an ester requires reflux in the presence of a strong acid or a strong base. Now, if you were refluxing stuff in your stomach with a strong acid or a strong base, we've got hydrochloric acid in here, but you don't want a reflux going on in your guts. That would be really bad. So you need something that operates at room temperature and that catalyzes the reaction, and that's where these proteins come into it, these enzymes. So an enzyme is a collection of amino acids. It can be hundreds of thousands of amino acids long. An amino acid, of course, being your NH2, bond C, double bond O, bond OH. Your biologists in the room will be familiar with this. This I group down here, that can be one of 20 possible different chains. Some are ionized, some are polar, some are non-polar. And by stacking them end on end like a biological polymer, you create a molecule. And in solution, depending on the secondary bonding interactions, that molecule will fold in a very particular way. And when the molecule folds in a very particular way, there's a thing we call the active site. And the active site of that molecule is then able to catalyze this breaking down of reactions. So these are complex chemical molecules that have evolved over a long period of time to carry out reactions at between 1,000 to 100,000 times the rate, purely through stacking amino acids end on end. I'll put up a table of common amino acids that you can see. Key thing is here, when these fold in a very particular way, they fold in that particular way in generally alkaline conditions, like you don't have a really acidic or basic environment when these are in the cells or in the guts. Well, I guess in the guts you have an acidic environment, but whatever they are, they've got their amino acids stacked in a way that they fold in the natural environment they're in a very particular way and at body temperature. If, for example, you start to heat up anything too much, these will vibrate too much, you'll start overcoming the secondary bonding interactions, then the way the protein folds will totally change and it no longer can carry out its intended biological function. It's what's called denaturing of the protein. That's why when you get like a detergent, it says contains enzymes, and then you put it in there and you turn the washing machine to like super hot water, well, it just unfold all the enzymes, so it'll just denature them, and then they can't carry out their role. So just because it contains enzymes doesn't mean they're going to do anything. It depends on the chemical environment you put them in. Anyway, again, another very complex natural molecule that has evolved over a very long period of time to carry out a biological function at body temperature. To me, these are fascinating. There's so many different molecules. The one that's got the longest name, I think it's called Titin is the short name, but it's got this tremendously long name, and there's like a couple of Russian dudes that have remembered the name and they read it. I'll link the video for you. I mean, I wouldn't bother watching it all the way through. It's like 3 hours of a guy saying the name of the protein, but
It's not big.
pretty incredible. Yeah, it's massive.
Why? How?
Well, it's just because it evolved. Alright, so in the production of a fat, your glycerol is going to attach to 3 fatty acids, and through a process of esterification it's going to join. So you end up with 3 ester groups on any triglyceride. When you hydrolyze it, you go back the other way. So it's exactly the same as the condensation reaction to create an ester, so 3 waters will be produced. But to go back the other way, 3 waters will be inserted, and you end up with your glycerol molecule chain and your 3 fatty acids. Now what I'm going to do as a demonstration is I'm going to go to the shops, and I'll put up the recipe for you all to see. But I'm going to get a bunch of oils, I'm going to mix it with sodium hydroxide, and I'm going to hydrolyze these oils, and it's going to become soap. And it takes about 6 weeks to set, so by the time we've come out of hiding from COVID, I will have really high quality, great soap for you to take home. And you'll be surprised with how good it is. It's like Viva La Body level. Like I really like it. And because it's all plant-based, because there are a number of soaps that use animal fats. Now, I mean, that's kind of gross, you know, like washing yourself with a cow fat-based soap, gross. But what's interesting is any fats, especially a lot of animal fats, make really good soap that feels really nice and smells really good. And there was an incident where in South America, tribes people were disappearing. And so what was happening is that people were kidnapping them, boiling up the people and making people oil, and then they were selling that oil to fine soap companies in France. And they were making, like, because the French people didn't know, they just knew they were buying this special, really high quality oil, and then they were making people soap.
But why were they making people soap instead of
Yeah, but the French people didn't know that they were buying people
I
oil.
know, but why were they making the soap out of
Because people make really nice oil.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, no.
it's crazy, it's just like, yeah, but you know, so all these villages are going missing.
That was seriously class.
That's pretty bad. Has anyone seen Fight Club? Probably it's an R18 movie. They go to this liposuction clinic, and then they go into the like biological waste bin, and they get all these big bags of siphoned off human liposuction fat, and they turn it into soap.
Wow.
I mean, it's for a movie, you know, it's just a damn movie. Now, without lipases, you'd need a concentrated acid or alkali with heat for extended periods to break down those fats. And considering how much I enjoy like McDonald's and all junk food, I'm very thankful for the lipases that are in me. Some fats and oils are edible, a lot of them are. What I find interesting was this this fish, you might have seen it before, like it has high strength liquid fish oil. I couldn't work out why the fish had a damn fruit hat on at the end, but it turns out it has a tropical flavour. I don't know if you've like a concentrated fish oil, but it wouldn't be surprising if it tasted like fish.
It's very
Which would be
gross.
gross. Yeah, gross. So fats are solid at room temperature, and they generally come from animals. They have a higher percentage of saturated fatty acids than oils. I'll see if I can find this table here to put up for you. And what I really enjoyed about the ethical, I like the name, ethical nutrients, because it's ethical, right? And so they've got this high strength liquid fish oil, and the fish gets all like unhappy because it has to eat all these bloody fish oil tablets coming down. And then it jumps out of the water and it drinks a teaspoon of the high strength liquid fish oil, and it's all happy. Look, new fresh mint flavour. It's drinking the oil of its own kind. This would be equivalent to boiling up people, making people oil, make a high strength liquid people oil, and then drink it and be really happy, stick a fruit hat on your head because it's tropical flavour.
I don't think that's what they were trying to
Ethical nutrients? Yeah, but look at it from a really dumb objective perspective. That's not ethical. That clownfish is not ethical. It is an unethical nutrients clownfish.
It's
Alright, we have covered this to some extent if you bothered to watch the previous materials I stuck up online. But fatty acids are generally non-polar and very long. Now, if you've got fatty acids that are saturated and don't have double or triple bonds, they're quite flexible. They also have lots of sites for secondary bonding interactions, the only type being dispersion, of course, because they're non-polar. So these are like pages of a book. They're able to stick together. The more they can touch. Now, if you've watched my video, or the video I put up, it's online, on Vandal's forces, you would have seen the sticky sausage, non-sticky balls thing. Sticky sausage here, 3 sticky sausages. They're able to pack nice and tight together, and the tighter, the more they can touch, the more van der Waals there is. The more van der Waals there is, the more thermal energy it's going to take to overcome it, to turn it into a liquid. Consequently, your saturated triglycerides are the ones which tend to be solid at room temperature, and so that's a fat. It's quite different to the way the oils will look, because an oil is a liquid at room temperature. Again, there's some picture there. I'll go figure out what it is, and if I can find it, I'll stick it in. So, fats have a relatively high melting point. Oils are liquids at room temperature because they've got areas of unsaturation. So, double and triple bonds are at a molecular level quite stiff. They're not flexible like the single bonds, what we saw in the previous picture. And they sort of bend the chains, but they don't allow them to come back and lie flat. They literally bend. So if I get Tessa's book and I crunch a bunch of, like you can see now that the pages all sit together nicely. Now watch as I crunch a bunch of pages in, and then I'll try and close the book again. You ready? No, I'm not. But you could imagine if I got these pages and screwed them up, a whole bunch of them, and then I tried to close the book, what would it look like? Yeah, it wouldn't shut, would it? It wouldn't shut nice and flat like this right now. So that's kind of like your unsaturated triglycerides. So they don't pack very well because of these kinks due to double bonds mostly. And if they don't pack very well, they're not touching. If they're not touching, they're not doing the van der Waals thing. There's going to be less van der Waals. If there's less van der Waals, there's less secondary bonding interactions to overcome. Therefore, it takes less thermal energy. Therefore, it's got a lower melting point, and therefore it becomes an oil at room temperature. Now, we need to be able to determine the degree of unsaturation for a fat, and so we need a test for alkenes. Now, we've covered off on a number of the standardised tests. So if you want to find an aldehyde over a ketone, you use Tollens reagent. If you want to identify a primary and a secondary alcohol from a tertiary, you use acidified potassium dichromate. If you want to determine whether or not you've got a double or triple bond, we use bromine water. This is not something that they recommend boys to touch because it renders them infertile. So it's often a prank that we don't do. It's better just to look online. If I can find a decent example, I will. I've had my kids, so I'm all good. It's, all of you young people, don't touch bromine water. Bromine water is just the diatomic bromine molecule, Br2, aqueous, dissolved into water. And what it does is it comes along and it grabs the double bond and brominates either side of it. Now this is brown, but in this here, it will become clear. So you get a change in colour there. Remember, your dichromate, for example, that changes colour, goes from orange to green as the chromium changes oxidation state. The silver mirror is quite obvious. It becomes a silver mirror as part of the name. Well, this is going to go from brown to clear. And it's kind of done in like almost a titration method. So you can use hydrogen, iodine or chlorine to cover the double bond. Bromine's usually used because you can see it as brown. I mean, it says it's orange, but I call it brown. Look at this bromine water. Toxic, corrosive, yuck. You can almost see like a gas coming up between the conical flask. I'm quite happy just to show this on the projector screen. So it'll go colourless once it goes across the double bond. So you fill the burette with bromine water, you add it till the fat, and one double bond will require one molecule of Br2, and you need to know the concentration of Br2. And the more bromine molecules it takes, it'll give you the more amount of unsaturation the triglyceride has, because it has to cover more double bonds, sometimes triple, but as far as I'm aware, mostly double. And when you do your titration, you're going to see it become clear, but once all the double bonds are then brominated, the endpoint will be known by, you can see a brown, because then you're getting bromine going into the water, and there's no more double bonds for it to brominate to go clear, so you're going to get an excess of bromine and you'll have hit the endpoint. Some picture, I don't know. Iodine can be used too. Used to be used, but because it's a lot bigger, it's slower and it doesn't work as well. So often it's called the iodine number for historic reasons, but we mostly use bromine. And the description is the mass of iodine that reacts with 100 grams of fat or oil. It's kind of a number. Now, I'm not really sure if you'll ever see that, to be honest. I'm going to go strip the last 3 to 5 years worth of triglyceride-based questions from the exams, so you'll know exactly what we're looking at. Plus, just go to your textbook and do the questions. Hydrogenation. So this is what I really like about fats and oils, is that you can get a bunch of vegetable oil, and often your vegetable oils are the ones that are unsaturated, so they're oil at room temperature. But if you want to make something like Meadow Lea or Nuttall-X, and this is it, you can be a food scientist. This is a job. You can be a food chemist. What you do is you hydrogenate the double bonds. So you take them from an unsaturated fatty acid to a saturated one. And to do that, you do it with heat, high pressure hydrogen, and a nickel catalyst. And that will take all your double bonds and hydrogenate them. And then the oils will turn into a fat, which is the subject of the videos that I put up before with my Dog Walk podcast. So you end up getting margarine. And you know, they don't want to take ages to make the margarine, so you use your catalyst, you use your temperature to reduce the activation energy and to increase the rate of reaction. You also do it in pressure, so that the hydrogen gas has more chance to hit on the double bonds. I actually rang up the people that make Meadow Lea in Australia and I said, look, this is really boring. So I want a video of it. I want to show the process you use to make Meadow Lea. They said no.
Why?
It's all locked up. It's a commercial secret. Because the way they do their business gives them a commercial edge over their competitors. So they don't show anyone. I thought, it's going to be a bunch of hydrogen gas blasted through a bunch of vegetable oils, but the process is actually much more complex. And you know what? There are a number of different chemical processes that are industrial that give those companies an edge over their competitors, and they won't share it with you. If you become a scientist and you work with them, you sign documents that make you legally liable if you release that information. I think even you can probably be charged as a crime. I'm not sure. I'll have to ask someone about that. But I know, for example, if you got a top secret clearance with the army and then you go and feed WikiLeaks a bunch of information, well, you're going to get charged. So it's a thing called commercial in confidence. The thing I love about Meadow Lee is, and I'll see if I can find an advert, but they always, I mean, it's basically sexist. It's always mum making dinner, not dad. So mum stays home because she's clearly uneducated and a housewife, which is a perspective that's modern, not modern, and completely distasteful. And then the family comes home and they're like, oh mum, if you want to have a wonderful family, use Meadow Lee because, you know, clearly if you purchase this hydrogenated vegetable fat, oil, sorry, that has become a fat, then you'll have a good family and a happy marriage and a wonderful dinner. It's freaking hydrogenated vegetable oil. That's all it is. Hydrogenated vegetable oil will not make you have a wonderful home. It's not going to make a wonderful dinner, and it's certainly not going to make life a lot better. It's just hydrogenated vegetable oil. But because they take this product and surround it with all this garbage in an advert, it becomes something more than what it is in real life. Alright, there's these questions. Maybe if I can find them, I'll put them up. Why don't you just do the questions in your book? So, triglycerides are, I pulled up the page before, 211. So I'll get you to read from page, well, that's columns. So start reading from page 211, go all the way through till 220. The action of soap. I do need to cover that. If we look on page 220, it actually goes into the action of soap. Soap, when you make it, when you hydrolyze the fatty acids, and this is what I'm going to do for you on video, and I'll make you all soap over the holidays. You will like it. If you don't want it, give it to your mums because they're worth it. When you do get your long chain fatty acids attached to your triglyceride molecule, so it's going to be C bond O bond C double bond O, O bond C double bond O, O bond C double bond O, and then big ass fatty acid chains. I'll be using vegetable oil, so there'll be a couple of double bonds here and there, whatever. I'm going to put this in the presence of sodium hydroxide. And when I've made soap before, it's like I now do it with glasses and gloves and stuff because I've had it splashing on my skin. There's a reason why it's called caustic soda. It really hurts. So you're going to end up severing the ester bond there. Because remember, this is the ester functional group. You're going to hydrolyze it. So you're going to end up with your propane 1,2,3 triol. H2, H and H2. That's great. That'll make the soap feel nice and slippery, which is fantastic. And then you're going to get your long chain fatty acids. Of course, it's in a what you call it? Basic environment. So you'll end up with a long chain fatty carboxylate ion. Now, whether it's the carboxylate ion or you've got a proton attached there, this is a polar group. This is a non-polar chain. Now, if you've got grease or whatnot, you can't just wash grease off with water. I don't know if you've ever tried, but it doesn't come off. You need soap. And so if you've got a grease molecule, grease, G-R-E-E-S-E. What happened there? Do you like it? Not spelling something correctly. It's funny according to the internet. On the molecular level, the grease gets surrounded by these fatty acids. Only like dissolves like. So the fat chain will go into the grease, and it'll dissolve into the grease. Great. And then on the end will be your polar functional group because it's a fatty acid. And of course, water has no issues dealing with these polar functional groups. So it's quite happy to do that. And the non-polar fatty acid chains are facing inwards inside a grease molecule. They're quite happy too because they're doing their whole non-polar thing. Water's doing its polar thing, and like dissolves like. Now, if another grease molecule surrounded by all those fatty acids comes along, well, you've got a bunch of negative charge around the outside. You've got a bunch of negative charge around that. So they repel each other, which is fantastic, because if they all clung together, you'd get a big, fat group of stuff. Now, this is called a micelle, and all these little micelles are still mobile and able to float around in water because they're repelling each other, and then you wash them off and you put them down the drain. And so that is how you're able to remove fats and oils. And you'll see that on the last page of your textbook. I think I've got a few scanning electron microscope photos of these things in action. It's pretty cool. Right, that's triglycerides. So at some point I'll get around to putting all the relevant materials online. I would like you then to go into your textbook and complete all associated questions. Plus, on top of that, I will also put questions related to triglycerides from past exams. And you know what? This is going beyond what I was planning on teaching this term, but I don't care. It's always good to overload you. Thank you. Stay safe during the holidays, and yeah.
Maybe I'll just be ever in your favour.
Look, what was that from?
Yes.
Oh, Hunger Games, the Hungry Games.
Yes.
This is stupid. Something about like that bird, whatever it's called. What do they have, a mopoke?
Mockingjay?
Oh, the mockingjay. What the hell is that?
It's like
I'm pretty sure it's real.
Hunger Games is lame.
No.
Yes, it is. No one likes it. And they study it in English, and they really should be studying Star Wars or Star Trek. That's where the real moral lessons are taught. And anyway, don't all you girls like Kylo Ren, because he's so swole.
He's so weird.
Ben Swallow. Haven't you seen him with that ripped chest?
You mean that weird scene in the video?
Yeah, the weird scene.
Randomly has no shirt on.
Yeah, randomly.